Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, David. How are you? Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. I couldn't be better. How are you?
I am great. I'm so happy it's you today.
I'm glad you're here.
I
Well,
come every
Kate,
week.
Kate and I will continue to alternate.
How do we know which week is yours and which week's is Kate? Because they all say you.
Yeah, I know. We tried to get both of our names on there. We couldn't do that for some reason. We're just alternating. So as of now, it's every other week. So if you had me, you'll have Kate next. Occasionally, we might switch each other because of something going on, but basically, we're going to alternate every week.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you with us on this Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Who here has something that they are thankful about in their business or their life besides me? If you
Aren't,
do, yep, go ahead, Namita. Nice to see
aren't
you.
we all? Well, first of all, I'm thankful that the accident I had in August was bad, but I'm here alive and kicking. It could have been worse, and
Hmm.
so still struggling with pain. So that's what I'm very, very thankful and grateful for, because then my husband was chauffeur, chef, bottle washer, and nurse, and
Uh-huh.
thankful and very grateful for him.
That's
Aw.
wonderful. Anyone else? Something you're thankful for here, either in your business or in your life? Nobody. Well, we need to talk about your business and your life then.
Really. Huh?
If people ask me how I'm doing, I always have the same answer, which is I couldn't be better. And it's not just a line, it's a reminder to myself that I get to choose how I interpret the circumstances of my life. I can be terrible, I can be terrific, but that's independent. That's not necessarily dependent on the circumstances of my life. Namita can have a terrible accident, but she can be extremely thankful that her husband is there to support her, for example. Melissa, something?
Yes, we had our annual toy drive this past weekend, and I'm thankful for so many people contributing. And the Compass agents from around the country sent toys, and some of them don't even know us. And we're going to be able to help 600 children have a better holiday. So I'm really thankful and grateful for that.
That's so wonderful. For those of you who don't know, Melissa's been doing this for a little while now, and it's a real event in her area. It's a big deal. And she just started doing it, right? I mean, it wasn't like something like you felt compelled to do it or anything. It's just you thought it was a good thing to do and you wanted to do it and you got others involved. Is that fair to say, Melissa?
Yeah, I was on a coaching call with Shirag, and he was saying he did it. So I said, okay, then I want to do it. And so he helped me create the platform 3 years ago. And this year we had 7 teams contribute. And to see the kids' faces, it was just priceless. And McDonald's donated, and people donated, and time and money. And it was just really beautiful.
Yep.
Mm.
Shirag did it when he was in my leadership program a number of years ago, and it was a great event. And not just a great event to attend and be a part of, but it was great to see the what comes out of that. And the only reason I mention this to everybody is if you're not doing something beyond your business for the world around you, ask yourself, what is it you care about? What is it that breaks your heart to see? Or what is it that kind of motivates you or makes you feel thankful when you see somebody else doing something? Because there's opportunities to do great things that give you a great sense of joy and satisfaction that also may end up helping your business in some way. And certainly in Melissa's case, she's connected with a whole lot of other agents that she might not have connected with if she hadn't done this. And who knows where those things go. So thanks for that example, Melissa. Okay, everyone, let's get started on today's conversation. So the two conversations that Shirag and Mike have talked about earlier this week, Monday, Shirag was talking about creating a luxury experience for sellers. And on Tuesday, if you missed Mike, Mike Walker is our chief revenue guy. He's a longtime consultant in the industry for, I think, 20 years or so, over 20 years, and does a lot of things for us in helping develop programs and works as a consultant outside of Shirag Shah Coaching, doing a lot of work for various agents and brokerages around the country. And he was talking about some basics, some points about business planning for 2025. And we'll be doing a lot more about that going forward. It was just kind of little intro that he gave yesterday. So just wanted to start by asking, is there anyone, I know Nomita was there, is there anyone who has a question or is confused about something that Chirag or Mike was talking about Monday or yesterday?
It's pretty loud and clear that he said, prospecting has to be one of our paramount activities, and how we time block in our business plan or in our calendar and then work through that. The other thing was that if we have a goal in mind, we can start working from it backwards to how we implement for the year, quarter, weekly, month, and weekly. I mean, that's
Correct.
my addition to it. It was not what he talked about wholly, but it's a way to start, yes.
Yeah, correct. That concept of beginning with the end in mind is a way that really helps a lot of people be successful, no matter what they're talking about, whether it's business or something else in their life. To ask yourself, what's the end result that I'm trying to achieve here for myself or for those around me? Start there. If you're not clear about what that is, then you can't really have a very cogent conversation with yourself or others about what you need to do. But if you set a clear goal for yourself at whatever time, then you can begin saying to yourself, okay, so what needs to happen for me to get there? Right? The goal is the what, and the action plan or the habits is the how. And you can't explore which how makes sense compared to other hows unless you're clear about what the what is. And so what Mike was saying is think about what the goal is and then work backwards from there and say what needs to happen between now and then. And he suggested that if you think of a yearly goal as too big and kind of too hairy for you and you just can't figure out, like it's too complicated, you don't have to set a yearly goal. You could set a semi-yearly goal, 6 months, or you could set a quarterly goal. Maybe a quarterly goal is 50 prospecting calls, or maybe it's one referral, or maybe it's 3 million in sales, whatever it is, right? Whatever that goal is, you ask yourself, is that really what I'm committed to? And if so, then what do I need to be thinking about to get there? What kind of habits and practices do I need to have in order to make that happen? Certainly. Anyone else have a question or kind of confusion about anything that Chirag or Mike was talking about? Okay, then let me ask this. Regarding those two topics, one is, working with sellers and creating a luxury experience there, and the second being planning for yourself or your business. Who has a struggle with any aspect of either of those things? What's a challenge that you face that you really struggle to overcome? Maybe it's something you've tried to overcome several times in the past, or maybe it's something new that's come up. You're not quite sure to handle it. What's a challenge or a difficulty that you're having in either of those two areas? Well, I'm glad to hear that. Then all of you are absolutely awesome at creating a luxury experience for all your sellers. And you're also awesome at planning for your business next year. I guess we can all go back to work now. There's no reason to be here. You're perfect. So let me ask this then. Are these topics are these valuable topics for you to explore in a conversation here, or is there just nothing that you really feel a need or desire to talk about with these things?
I think we've been talking about luxury for a while, so
Yes.
we kind of get it, but I guess now we have to come to a point where we actually have a client that's in that space, or a seller or a buyer, where we can deliver what we have learned or implemented.
Correct.
To implement, yeah.
Correct.
So I think, and at this time of the year, of course, things are a bit quiet, so we have to work on getting business. So
Correct.
working on getting business, this is a little off topic. I've had some wonderful clients who I've done 2, 3, 4 transactions with, and suddenly they're not responding. They're like ghosting out. We know they have very busy careers, but No response, text, email,
Yeah.
voicemail, nothing, notes,
Mhm.
cards, nothing.
Yeah.
What do you do? Let go, forget it, wait for them to come back to you. I've got like 3 or 4 of these kind of people.
Yeah. Well, there's two things that come up for me when you share that. First is if you've had success in getting people to reply to you and send referrals to you in the past, and it's not happening now, you do have to ask yourself honestly, what is it that might be getting in the way from these people getting back to me at this particular time? It could be that their life is busy. It could be that they've got something else that's going on that's just taking their attention away from it. But to be honest, if you want to be a real professional, this is for all of us. It's not certainly just for Namita, it's for all of us. And that's to ask yourself, honestly, what is it that I'm doing to create an experience for them? And what is the experience that they're having of me? Because many of us who've been in the business for a long time, we tend to rest on our laurels. We say, oh, well, I've been doing this for years and years. And, I've got all these satisfied customers in the past. But you know what? Sometimes we're slipping. Sometimes we're maybe missing something that we should be paying attention to, we should be seeing or hearing in the client's experience. Maybe we're forgetting to do Med-C or something like that along the way. Or maybe the materials that we're giving them, are not as clear as we believe they are from their point of view. In other words, we're not creating the experience that we might want them to have. How do you have evidence that you're actually creating an outstanding, awesome experience for someone, whether they're a luxury customer or not? How do you know that you're absolutely meeting and exceeding their expectations?
They tell you.
They tell you. That's the number one, correct. That's number one most valuable thing, is to hear them say, I'm so impressed, or I just love working with you. You've done so much more to go above and beyond than I ever expected. That feedback is the best possible evidence that you're exceeding their expectations. Other forms of evidence could be that they send a referral to you, or that they send you a Christmas card or some kind of a holiday card at the end of the year or something like that, right? They're investing in their relationship with you because they're getting some kind of value or benefit from it. If they ever ask you if you want to go out for a cup of coffee or have lunch together, even after the the transaction is completed, all of that tells you that you're creating a powerful experience in their life. Otherwise, they wouldn't do that. So if people aren't calling you back, if people aren't asking you how you're doing, if people aren't asking you for lunch or a recommendation for something in the town that they've just moved into or something like that, you have to ask yourself, am I really doing as well as I think I am? And as far as selling and prospecting, if you're winning every single pitch, great, don't change anything. But if you're not winning every single pitch, the same thing goes. You need to ask yourself, am I really creating the experience here that I believe I want this customer to have? And it's the same with anyone who has to perform. If you're a basketball player and you've scored 20 points a game for the last 10 years, but this year you're only scoring 12, obviously it's easy to see that your performance has slipped, or maybe there's something that you're doing that's just not working as well as it has in the past. And I don't mean to imply that for anybody here, but we all have to have some humility. One thing I really, really love and respect about Melissa is, and I work with Melissa personally, she never gives up in her drive to be the best that she can be. And I don't mean to embarrass you, Melissa, but she has a wonderful spirit to always try to raise her game, no matter how successful she's been. And we should all be that way. We should all be looking at ways that we can increase and improve our ability to perform in these situations. And I know you're all doing that by being here. That's great. But it may not be enough. If you're not winning every pitch, if you're not getting effusive praise from a large number of your clients, we do have to explore the possibility that there's something we could be doing differently or do better than we think. It's never enough to simply rest on our laurels. It really is, what have you done for me lately? Now, regarding your comment about, whether I should continue to reach out to somebody who's not responding to me or not, that's a tough call, Namita, and it's a business decision in the end. It's absolutely true that some people are very happy that you're contacting them, even though they don't contact you back. There are other people that may find it a nuisance, and as soon as they get your text, maybe they erase it and they don't want anything in the relationship, let's say after the transaction is over. That's fine too. On the other hand, there are some ways to work around this. One is what Chirag has talked about in the past, which is shifting the nature of your relationship when you get to the end of the transaction. When the deal closes, before the deal closes, or, Chirag sometimes suggests to have this conversation when the closing is set and the person's so excited about it. I say similarly, in any positive moment where the person is feeling really good about the relationship and what it's created in their life, that's the time to have a conversation about them. Hey, many of my clients are very interested in staying connected with me afterwards. I'm happy to give them information about the value of their house going forwards. A lot of people want to know about recent restaurants opening and other stores and things that may have an interest. I know you're really interested in, I don't know, perfume, or I know you're really interested in travel or whatever. Would it be all right with you if we stayed in touch and I kept you informed of those things as we go? 99% of the clients, especially if they're happy with you, would be delighted that you say that. And so you've reframed the relationship in their mind from simply a person they hire to work with them for a few months while they buy or sell a house, to someone who will be a partner with them in creating the life that they want to have forever. And not everybody wants that, for sure, of course, and that you don't want to force yourself on anybody. But once you have that conversation with every client, you're much more likely to have them be thankful for and be more responsive to your comments, your texts and those kinds of things, newsletters and that kind of stuff going forwards. But ultimately, if a person is not replying, there's nothing that Chirag and I can say to you whether you should continue with that particular person or not. You have to make a business decision. And part of it is not just, how responsive they are, but, when you think of what's my ideal client or what's my ideal profile of a client, one of those elements might be, this is a person who's likely to recommend me to somebody else. Right? It's great to serve a client who's like the connector of your town, right? The person who knows everybody. And this is why it's sometimes useful to market yourself to the people that you think are the connectors. And those connectors are very often people who are local restaurant owners because they know lots of people in town, or other people who have an active business in town. Maybe somebody who runs a prominent nonprofit in town. The executive director or the development director who raises money for that nonprofit. They know tons of people in the town, of course. Any other prominent for-profit business. Politicians, newspaper, and if there's a local newspaper that you guys have in the town where you work, absolutely you should be getting to know that person. Not necessarily because you think that person's going to buy a house from you, but because that person knows everybody. And if they know you and they develop a good relationship with you that they feel good about, yeah, you're much more likely to get a referral. So as you think about your own ideal profile of a client, or profile of an ideal client, those are some things to keep in mind. Thanks for sharing that, Nomita. Let's hear from someone else. What else is on your mind on any of these topics that we're discussing this morning? Especially, I'm curious to hear about a barrier or a difficulty or a challenge that you have with either of these things we've been talking about, creating a real luxury experience for somebody or planning. Because honestly, I'm with Mike. Mike said something like he's worked with a lot of agents, and so have I now. And you know what? One thing I see is everyone has the best of intentions, but when I ask them, how did you do in terms of coming through on all of your plans and dreams and ideas for the business in the last year, 80% of them didn't quite get very close. And it's the same thing we see with people, in the beginning of the year, they say, well, I'm going to get in shape this year and I'm going to be I'm going to really take care of myself. And so they join a club on January 1st. But the research shows that 80% of the people who join a club on January 1st, a health club on January 1st, end up stop going by, February 1st or February 15th. And so this business planning piece is something that I've seen over and over and over again in the last 4 years, where people start with the best of intentions and they throw out some nice round numbers that sound really wonderful and delicious. But if I ask, did you come within 90% of your last year's goal? Most people say, no, I didn't. And if that's the case, then that's, time to open up a question. Well, how am I doing with my goal setting and business planning? Mike made one important point that I thought that he said yesterday was, sometimes all you need is a list, right? He said there are 4 reasons why people don't prospect more. One is they don't know who to call. Second is they think people won't want to take their call. Third is they don't know what to say. I forget what the 4th one was. But basically what he said was, in talking with all the people that he's worked with, he realized that it's not necessarily those things. It's sometimes as simple as simply having a list. If you had a perfect list in front of you, which was the 3 people you want to call today or the 5 people you want to call today, and if you had that specced out for the next 5 days, chances are you'd make those calls. is what he was talking about. And I agree with him on that. Sometimes a simple tool like a list is what's really holding you back. But this gets to the kind of mistake that we make in trying to understand why we're not doing something. We might say it's because I don't know who to call. But honestly, we have 200, 400, 600, 900, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 names in our list. We could easily rattle off 100 names that we really care about, the people that we would really like to have ongoing relationships with. And that means that it's really not a question of, knowing who to call. It's the 100 people that you would like to have a relationship with going forward that you feel might want to have a relationship with you. Lots of ways to think about your CRM, and you can divide it into A's and B's and C's, and there's lots of different theories and things there. But, the way Chirag sees it is simply, who are the people that you would like to be able to just continue your relationship with, that you feel so comfortable to reach out to anytime? Like you might send a picture of what you're doing on your vacation to them because you already know them. Or that they're really into some activity like mountain climbing or biking or something. And when you see an article or a TV show about it, you fire off a text to them because you know that they can connect to that. It's those kinds of closer people that are the ones you should really be focusing on. So if we say something like, I don't know who to call, it's really in some ways not that difficult. The harder part actually is following through. It's the same with getting in shape. You can join a gym, it's very easy, and you could hire a trainer for the first month and say, okay, give me 10 exercises to do. And then you've got that, and then you could just spend the rest of the year doing those exercises and you'd get the benefit from it. But it's really hard to keep going to that gym every other day or whatever your routine is. Even if you know basically what to do, it's hard to follow through.
Hard to
So
know
let's
what
hear it with
to say.
someone else. What's on your mind? Cindy?
Yeah, it's hard to know what to say, to even get them to the point to do a med C.
Yep. So are you talking about people that you have a previous relationship with, or what kind of people come to mind for you when you're saying that?
Well, like people I meet at an open house, for instance, you
Yep.
talk to them and you seem like you hit it off. They give you their contact information, and then maybe you reach out to them, but then you don't hear back, and you keep reaching out, and then if you do get a hold of them, it's the hard part of getting them to the point of being able to go over the med C, or just even
Yep.
my clients in my database. It's like, what do I say when I call them?
Yep. Got it. Yep. Certainly meeting people at a showing is a little tough because you don't know how serious they are. Are they really serious? Are they just tire kickers and they're never really actually going to pull the trigger on anything to actually go look and move somewhere? It is hard to tell for sure. On the other hand, this is where the Med C can come in really handy. If you meet someone at an opening, or at a showing rather, all you need to do is Med C them at that particular moment. If you can learn one little thing about them, one particular interest or one particular motivation. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. I see you're here today. Are you thinking moving in, in the near term, or is this kind of a more long-term kind of thing for you? So, well, we just moved into town 6 years ago, and we're going to start a family pretty soon, and we're just not really sure if we should move now or wait a little bit longer for the market to change. Oh, you're thinking of having a family. Well, that's wonderful. Are you thinking, do you like a big family? Do you like a small family? Oh, we want a big family. Oh, that's wonderful. What kinds of things do you see yourself doing with your big family? Oh, we love to go, we've got this camper, and we love to drive across the Southwest every summer and visit a bunch of national parks. Oh, that's wonderful. So now you've learned something really valuable about that person in what could be a 3-minute conversation or 5-minute conversation. And that gives you certainly something to go back to again and again. If you really care about developing a relationship with that person for any reason, you can certainly gather some useful information about camper travel and website. There's a million websites that talk about that. There's the National Park Service has a website. There's magazines that do that stuff. You could send them a subscription to, Camper Magazine, Camper USA, or whatever the magazine is that everybody uses that has those kinds of campers. There's lots of ways you could do something, but from my point of view, it always comes back to two things. And I've said this in some of my other calls too: connection and contribution. When you're working with someone like that, who you're not really sure if they're in or they're out, again, it's a business decision. You have to decide how much time or money you want to invest in that person. Potentially, that's true. But what you want to do is make a connection. And better than that, the next step is make a contribution. And so the first conversation or second conversation, the first text or whatever, hey, it was so nice to meet you. Would love to, keep in touch with you as you go through this odyssey of deciding, when and how you want to move. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions or whatever. And but after that, you can think about contribution. And the contribution is, how do I make a small contribution to what it is that's in their life that they care about? And if they care about campers, those are some things you could do. You could send them a 1-year subscription to Camper Magazine for $12. That's not a big contribution, but it's something that's, they would see as someone, oh, this person really listened to me. This person heard something about what I care about. And then this person went out of her way to go ahead and get me something. And if it's a subscription, for example, they get it once a month for 12 months, that's 12 reminders of this kindness that you did for them. So that's just an idea. If somebody said, oh, well, we want a slightly bigger house because we have 4 dogs. 4 dogs. Wow, that's wonderful. You must love dogs. Now, what kind of dogs do you have? Well, we get all these rescues from such and such a center. Oh, wonderful. So are they, like your big dogs, small dogs? Oh, well, we got 2 big ones, 2 small ones. Wow, that's wonderful. Dogs are such a wonderful thing in so many people's lives. So happy for you. And then make sure that you send them something about dogs. Maybe you send them a doggy treat, a month later or something like that. Hey, happy holidays. I'm sure you're celebrating with your family. I'm sure the dogs are part of that. And here's a little something for your dogs. Right? So many ways that you could add a little bit of contribution to their life. But if you ask yourself, how do I contribute to them? You have to know what it is they care about. Does that answer your question at all, Cindy?
Yes, I think that those are all really good points. That one of the hard parts is for me is trying to get a person maybe to come into the office, like a buyer, to even be able to sit with. That's a challenge.
Yep, for sure. So does anyone else on the call have something that they have done that has been successful in getting someone to come into the office?
I think we have to find out, and sometimes it happens at the first meeting, if it's at an open house. One of the other things was like, hey, so you're here. Are you ready to buy a house today? And if you make light of it, and then they start talking and opening up, and then they go through the house. So that's one way. And then if we'd like to hear more, we'd love to get together and, what times are available. That seems to work if they're really motivated. So, so also sometimes one can be upfront on direct and say, okay, so if you were to, you like this house or you don't like this house. If you were to buy a house, what does your time frame look like? So they give you an answer. Then you know how to pace yourself to send reminders and get them to connect. And then they're like, okay, we're ready to move forward. And typically, usually they'll say, oh, not for 6 months. But then if you wait 6 months, they've already gone and bought a house. It's not true. They go to an open house, like it, and buy it. But now, of course, things have changed with the NAR settlement, so it'll be different. But it'll be a good way to, these are the things I have tried. And yes, they work sometimes, they don't work sometimes. But we just have to keep asking questions in different ways and try to ask open-ended questions so we get responses.
Yep, open-ended questions are very valuable, no doubt about it. There's two reasons why open-ended questions are valuable. Remember, an open-ended question cannot be answered yes or no. An open-ended question begins with what, where, when, why, how.
Yeah.
So by using some of those questions, if it's not your normal habit to ask those questions, if you tend to ask yes or no questions, like if you say, can you come into the office? That's a yes or no question. And you could say something instead like, how would it be, what would be the best way for me to meet you? Or what would be the best way for us to get together? They might say, well, I'm in my office all the time and I'm in such and such an office park. Would it be possible for you to come there and meet me? Absolutely. I'd be delighted to meet you there. When we offer something like, hey, come into the office, what we're saying is, in a sense, we're dangling for a fish, right? We're saying, here's some bait. Will you take the bait? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. Whenever they say no, they've made some kind of a calculation in their mind that the cost to them is not worth whatever it is that they think they're going to get out of it, right? And that's why they say no. It makes perfect sense. Like they don't want to take the time to come meet you because their time is valuable to them. Or maybe they didn't like the way that you talked to them, or they didn't like the way that you looked at them or whatever, and you're not going to actually get any sales out of them, whatever. We have to understand that they've made a calculation. And at that particular moment, in that particular way, they're not accepting that proposal. They've made some kind of a calculation that tells them the time and effort necessary, or the cost or whatever, to me is not worth what I think I'll get out of it. And so when we're talking about connection and contribution, what we're talking about is giving them an experience in that moment of being related to by you. Or stronger than that, being contributed to by you. And so let's say that you meet somebody at an open house and they just had lunch and they come in and they're like dabbing off their blouse because they just spilled something on their blouse, and like, oh, man, I just spilled this thing 5 minutes ago on my blouse. And you would respond by saying something like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. You know what? There's a great cleaner here on such and such a street. Let me give you the address. Here it is. I'll let them know that you may be coming in. You've made a contribution to them at that particular moment because, maybe they don't know. Maybe it's not their hometown. Maybe they don't know where they can get this blouse cleaned, or somebody that they can trust who's really good at it. Maybe their own, cleaners is somebody that they don't really like or don't really trust, doesn't do a good job, something like that. Something offered honestly in a spirit of contribution, in a spirit of service, 8 out of 10 times will not go unnoticed by the person. And so we do have to think again, when we say to somebody, how would you like to come into the office? And they say no. What we've just learned is a way to not succeed in getting them to come into the office. And so we can ask ourselves, is there another way for us to invite them into the office? Or is there another way for us to connect with them, right? Like, do we need to do what it is we want to do in the office, or could we do it somewhere else? That may be something that's enough for them to say yes to, like if you meet them at their place of work, or maybe even their home, or who knows, a coffee shop, right? Lots of places where something could happen, doesn't have to be in the office. But it's simply a matter of, at that moment, they haven't gained enough trust in us and see enough value in us to make the investment of time or effort in what it is we're suggesting. And it's a really tough one to manage, but if we're always thinking about connection and contribution, then we can always, when we're thinking about connection and contribution, what we're not thinking of, how can I connect with you? It's how can I have you have the experience of being connected to? And same thing with contribution. It's not how can I contribute to you? It's how can I help you have an experience of being contributed to? And that's what Chirag was talking about yesterday when he talked, Tuesday or Monday, when he said main character syndrome. Right? It's very easy for us to frame our interaction with someone else according to our interests and our perspective. If we say, well, why don't you come into the office to meet me? We may not be thinking of anything other than to serve them, to support them. On the other hand, we may actually be slightly falling into that main character syndrome. It's a little different to say, why don't you come into the office to see me? Or think about, why don't I invite this person to come into the office to see me? Versus, why don't I find a way to have a connected interaction with this person where this person feels connected to and contributed to? And that means it may not be in the office. It may not be a one-on-one conversation. You may have to have it with that person and his or her spouse plus the 4 dogs out on a walk, because they walk the dogs at 9:30 in the morning, and that's what they do. That's fine. If you want that client, certainly you could say, I'd be happy to go for a dog walk for you. I love dogs. Let's go for a walk. What time what time and where do you want to meet? Right? That kind of thing. Really challenging stuff. You guys are bringing up really good examples here. Wish we had a little bit more time. We're a little over today. So let me say the same thing Chirag did, which is I'm thankful for all of you. This is a time of year when I count my blessings and the things that I'm thankful for in my life. I'm thankful for all of you being on these calls with me and us during the course of this year. Look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone. See you again.
Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you.